Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. This is a great turnout. My name is Judy Bishop. I'm with the McCandless Environmental Advisory Committee. We are sponsoring this presentation tonight along with Northland Public Library with help from the Allegheny Conservation District and the Gertie's Run watershed. So we will do a panel presentation for you tonight. We have 4 speakers. The way the schedule will work, we're starting at 7. From 7 until 8, we'll have our 4 presentations. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll open it up for questions for half an hour. Thank you very much for coming.
Okay, again, thanks for being here. And there are 4 presentations. They're 10 minutes each. So these are by far not complete, packets of information. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them or follow up later. My name is Rebecca Zazis. I'm here to talk about watersheds, streams, and flooding. So this is the journey we're going on together. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm not used to speaking into a microphone.
Can everybody see you, or they like all the lights up? All right, just checking. Thank you.
Is this pretty okay?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay, so this is our journey. The big idea is that we all live in a watershed. Streams are a part of a watershed. There's a natural system in place, and that as humans, we have changed the natural state, which has led to some consequences where we live. So a watershed is an area of land defined by boundaries and high points and low points. This is a watershed. It took me a really long time to grasp this concept. I actually went to college for environmental science and did not until very recently understand what a watershed is until I was being paid to understand what it is. But it's just an area of land defined by hills and ridges. So I like to imagine a funnel standing in the rain, and the rain that falls into the funnel and drains to the end of the funnel, that's a watershed. And then all those funnels are surrounded by other funnels. No matter where you are, you're always standing in a watershed. So here's Pine Creek Watershed. I don't know, are we standing in Pine Creek Watershed right now? Okay, so here's Pine Creek Watershed. And imagine I put in a rubber ducky right there. And you can follow it the whole way down. North Fork Pine Creek, Pine Creek, Pine Creek, Allegheny River. So watersheds are connected. They lead one place to another. They start at the top and they go down, down, down. So there's the star, Pine Creek Watershed. Follow that into the Allegheny River. The Allegheny River goes into the Ohio River. The Ohio River goes into the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River goes to the Gulf of Mexico. So our actions are not isolated. What you do upstream impacts conditions downstream. Streams are part of the landscape. Transportation highways, and in their natural state, they're able to deal with impacts. So I don't know if you can read that. Streams that are in balance with their landscape are able to transport water and sediment, both with large and small floods, and they're able to return to their previous form after a flood event. So streams have curves, streams transport water and sediment, streams transport water materials, so they're always adjusting their sizes to carry the load. They need floodplains, they're usually forested, and they're always changing. So, stream shape. Channels are rarely straight, so there's always some level of curvature, and you can see the boundary of the meander belt. That just means anywhere in those 2 lines, that stream can shift over time. Streams had floodplains. So flooding and erosion, which is the wearing away of banks, those are natural processes. If a stream floods, it can sprawl out into the floodplain, and then it can return back to its original state after the water has been absorbed, and there's been time for the water to be sent downstream. Riparian habitat. Streams usually are forested in our region. So here you see mostly undisturbed watershed. That's a good representation. And then an unhealthy watershed. It's a channel, there are buildings, no floodplains. Here's a stream using its floodplain. Spot the differences. The picture on the top, this is in the Deer Creek watershed. You'll notice forested, there's some curves, and there's a floodplain. On the bottom, this is the Sawmill Run watershed. No curves, no floodplain, no vegetation. Because water runs downhill, actions that take part in one place of the watershed can impact other parts of the watershed. And human actions throughout the entire watershed cause more extreme flooding. So, flooding is natural. Why is it happening so much, and why is it causing so much damage? Because we're building in floodplains, so we're taking away the space that's necessary for floodwaters to do their thing. We're altering streams, we're straightening them, we're speeding up their process. We're developing, we're taking away green space, which increases stormwater, so there's a greater volume of water coming through with nowhere to go. There's an increased precipitation trend in our region. Loss of floodplain speed. Here we are building in the floodplain. Here we are taking the floodplain away entirely. Here we are speeding up the water. Here's another example. We're either taking away the floodplain entirely or straightening it. And here you are on the picture on the left. Even though there is a floodplain, there's really nothing to hold it back. It's just coming through, and there's no vegetation on either side. And this is how I picture it in my mind. You know the car has to slow down when it's going through the curve, so this helps me to conceptualize straight versus curved. Deforestation and development, it creates stormwater. It also creates sediment issues and carries litter and pollutants. Streams aren't able to handle the volume and the speed of water coming off of our developed areas. And the increased sediment can pile up, magnifying the impacts of flooding even more. Deforestation and development. This is a before and after of a development. So on the left, pre-development, post-development. So imagine a rain falling on the picture on the left and where the rain goes, and that would be into the ground. And then on the right, it's pavement and nothing to soak up the rainwater. The same with the parking lot on the bottom. So it's more water, and it's less places for it to go and less places to absorb the water. And here's just a simple example. 1 inch rainfall over 10,000 square feet, it's 639 cubic feet of runoff versus 3.9 cubic feet of runoff on a forested 10,000 square feet. And stream management on the micro scale. So here's just a backyard. There may be a floodplain, but there's really nothing holding the water back. So imagine a rain coming from the development up there, rain coming down from the side of the road, rain coming down through this outlet, and just whooshing down. And there's nothing here. So imagine if there were trees here, slowing down the water, helping it to absorb, and also evapotranspiration, so that water is being transpired through the air. So it's another alternative to soak up water. So big scale, little scale. The flooding recipe, we have more stormwater, we have more precipitation, we have less green space, and we've altered our streams, so we're experiencing more flooding. And I think that's it. Are we waiting till the end for questions?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Hello, good evening. My name's Matt Gordon. I'm also with the Allegheny County Conservation District. I work in our regulatory programs. So we actually have contractual agreements with the state DEP to do certain permitting and inspection functions. And one of our programs is dam safety. Oh, sure. I'm Matt Gordon, Allegheny County Conservation District. I work in our regulatory programs, so we actually have contractual agreements with the state DEP to do certain permitting, review, inspection programs, and dam safety waterway management is one of them. So people proposing any work, structures in streams, floodways, wetlands, we see a subset of those permits and do inspections on them. Flooding is a hot topic. We've had a lot of rain the past 2 years. I'm sure everyone's aware of that. So it's on everybody's mind. It's interesting speaking with the public after a flood. Everybody is always sure there's a problem. Floods are as old as rainfall and streams draining the landscape. when you get an unusually heavy rain, it's going to flood. It's a natural thing. Just a general food for thought question for people. Why is Pine Creek the width it is in Shaler versus the Ohio River the width it is by the stadiums? I mean, why are they so differently sized? It's, yeah.
It's the water from the whole state collects in the Allegheny. We're only collecting water from a small area.
Yeah, it's mostly a function of that watershed area that Rebecca talked about, the cover, and how much rainfall you're getting. So if you can imagine over time, centuries, eons, all these episodic rain events, you get big floods, it carves out that channel naturally. It finds its balance. It finds for how much land is draining somewhere, how big does this channel need to be. But not only the channel itself, it's not really the small rains that are sizing the wet channel, it's those big flood events. I mean, that's what's carving out that path. And Rebecca touched on things we've done. You know, parking lots, they shed water a lot more quickly than a forest with a deep soil. So there, are increases. And we always hear that dredging is the solution. Let's dredge the stream. So just going to talk a little bit about some of the, consequences of that. How effective is it really? And what are the alternatives? How do you do flood reduction? What are some other things other than dredging? Again, it's a common reaction to floods. The water spilled over the banks. If the creek were deeper, wider, we could hold all that water. There are programs doing this, so we'll touch on some of those later. In general, you get a moderate increase in capacity in that stream. Pine Creek's only so wide. You can only go so deep before the sides just start caving in. But yeah, you can hold a little bit more water there. What happens with dredging, you get large increases in the speed, the velocity of the water, the volume, cross-section, the discharge, large increases in erosion and downstream flooding. You're altering that channel to move more water quicker downstream. So you're increasing flooding downstream with these projects. This is just a typical, I had a friend in Bradford County just run this for me. And this is just showing an undredged channel, natural stream channel, and what that would look like in a dredged condition. So at bank full flow, just a couple items. The discharge greatly increases from undredged to dredge, almost tenfold. So you're moving a lot more water downstream quickly. The shear stress, the force of the water on those banks goes up significantly. So think about bridge abutments, utilities, your backyards. When that bank is full, it's ripping at those banks, just causing them to erode and fall in. The threshold grain size, it's hard to see. This is the size of a rock that would move. And you could see that goes up about 7 times. So gravel to, basketball plus size. So you get minor increases in capacity, but you're really moving that water through and increasing its destructive power. Just a really typical section, what happens after you dredge a stream. So if you can imagine this stream bed, follow this dotted line. So you've cut this out of there to increase the water capacity. Right here, that big gradient change, you tend to get what's called a head cut. So the water picks up over it, and it just starts eroding away at the front of that. Immediately it starts filling in. You now have a wide, deep, slow area. So anything the water's carrying just starts filling that in. So you spend all the time and money to dredge this out, and the second you're done, it starts filling in. That's where it's wide and slow. That's where things are going to drop out. I had a video that really illustrated this. There's not the right video player on this laptop. I'm sorry I can't show it to you, but I do encourage you to go home. These are called stream tables, and it's a dredging simulation where they take a bunch of sand out, and it illustrates that. You see the head cut. You see it immediately start to fill in. And I have some picture examples in Allegheny County coming up as well. You also need to think about how much material do you really need to dredge. This is Oakdale. You've been to Oakdale, Robinson Run. It floods there. I mean, there's water hundreds of feet from the stream. I mean, if you went in a stream, as wide as from this railing to the wall and went 10 feet down for 500 feet, you could fill a swimming pool or something, but I mean, there's acres of water hundreds of feet from the stream. In a true flood situation, you can't contain that in the channel. The floodplain is an essential part of that stream and an essential part of sizing that stream over time. So imagine we went 500 feet, dug 10 feet down. This water level might be, you would have to crunch numbers, but it's half a centimeter lower. I mean, in a true flood, you can't keep that water in the channel. You need a functioning floodplain. So we do have these in Allegheny County. There used to be the feds funded it, the Army Corps of Engineers. Then there was a Turtle Creek Valley Flood Authority, and now the Allegheny County Department of Public Works takes care of this. So if you're familiar with Pitcairn, right behind the fire department, there is a 1,200 feet long sediment basin, essentially. This is 2005, soon after a dredging activity. One thing that's difficult, we don't know the stream flow, but you could see clearly in the 2005 condition, there's much less sediment. This is actually 2009. So again, you create a wide, slow, deep area. As soon as you're done digging, it starts filling in. And you got to think about the price tag. I mean, the economic viability of this. Any homeowners that had a French drain dug or something, the cost of getting an excavator over to do some work. Think about 12 long reach excavators and hundreds of dump trucks of material. These have huge price tags to get done. And 4 years later, time to do it again. So what can you do? Flooding's an issue. Dredging is not the best option. It's not widely used. Increased downstream flooding. You spend a lot of money. There's environmental degradation. The generally accepted, practice is to hold the water throughout the watershed. Connect floodplains upstream. If everybody takes a little bit of flooding, there's not somebody downstream taking all of it. So if you can imagine all those small streams that are this wide, popped out of their banks for 10 feet and could flood and soak in those areas, dispersing it in that way. And also landscape practices, stormwater retention for big parking lots. Just holding back that water and slowly releasing it at a controlled rate makes a major difference, doesn't degrade the channel, and in the long term is a more viable option. And that really leads into our next presentation, because Maureen Copeland is going to talk about stormwater practices and good watershed practices.
Cool. Good evening, everyone. If I tend to walk and talk, so if I ever get in front of the screen and you can't see, tell me to move over and I will. So my name is Maureen Copeland. I am with the Allegheny County Conservation District as well. What I do at the Conservation District doesn't really relate too much to my presentation, but for the last 10 years or so, I've worked at organizations that have done some stormwater management in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I should pull up my presentation, but what I'm going to talk about is what you can do as homeowners or as individuals who all live in watersheds. And since we all live in watersheds, we all can do something. And so, again, we've got 10 minutes, so I am not going to be able to give you a full engineer's description of how to do any of these, so please don't go home and say you heard me and you're an expert now and put these into practice. I'll give you a little description of what everything is, some resources. You can do your own research, talk to maybe an expert, and start putting some of these practices in place at your own home. So I'll be talking about rain gardens, rain barrels, riparian buffers, and how that can help kind of the overarching flooding issue. Because as Matt said, dredging isn't the option, maybe not, but some of these other things can help slow the water down at the source where it lands in your own yard, and then that will benefit further downstream. And one thing I really, it's not something that we're taught often to treat water as a resource. If you think about your favorite vacation place, how many people like to go to the beach or go somewhere where there's an amazing waterfall? Water is a great resource. There's plenty of places in this country that are running out of water, and we are so abundant in water, and we gripe about it because it's always raining, and it's always gray, it floods. It's annoying, but if we start kind of changing our thinking and maybe thinking of water as a resource, not always rushing it down the pipe and away from our yards, but maybe we can do something a little bit better if we think of it as the resource it is. So that is my challenge to all of you, is to start thinking about this water that lands in your yard as a resource. I love math. I know a lot of people don't, but bear with me. We're going to think about a house and think about how much of that precious resource is coming off your house during a rainstorm. This is definitely not my house. It's 1,600 square foot roof, so it's a large house. I realize that. 1,600 square foot roof with 430 square foot front porch. Anyone want to guess how much rain comes off that roof in a half-inch rainstorm? 300 gallons? Anyone else? No one else likes math, all right. You can see during a half-inch rainstorm on this roof, we're getting 600 gallons of water. So that is one house in Highland Park neighborhood of the city. I don't know how many houses are in Highland Park. Then you think about the city as a whole, or you think about McCandless. How many houses do we have in McCandless? And if each house is producing maybe up to 600 gallons of water every half-inch rain, anyone remember what those rains were that we got in, was it August? July? The 3-inch rainstorms? Think about the quantity of precious resource that's coming off your roof. I'm sure everyone thought of it as a precious resource that day, but and just for your information, if you're trying to figure out how much water comes off your roof, it's a simple equation. You take your square footage of your roof, which you can find on Allegheny County's real estate page. You take it times the inches of rain. There's a simple 0.623, that's just conversion factor to get inches and square foot to gallons. And then if you're coming off a roof, roofs move water really quickly. So it's 0.95, say, is your runoff coefficient. If you're coming off of grass, it's going to be a little bit less since grass holds some water. So that's a simple equation. You can do that own math problem at your own house. See how much water comes off your roof. Not all homes are 1,600 square feet, so this is a small row house in the city, and during a half-inch rain, we get 260 gallons. So you think somewhere between 260 to 600 is a reasonable range for how much water is coming off our roofs. So, thinking about this water as a resource, how do we deal with it and appreciate it? One of my favorite ways to appreciate water is through rain gardens. Can you see behind me? I realize I'm probably blocking you. You're good? Okay. Rain gardens are a landscape practice that helps capture water where it lands and infiltrate the water through the ground. Instead of putting it into a pipe and rushing it off, we're going to have the water stay in our yard. So some of the features, you've got a conveyance feature, which is your downspout, and then maybe a pipe or some other feature to get it into a curved, bowl-shaped garden with awesome plants and really good soil, maybe not the clay that is all through our yards, but but some nice compost and sand, and that infiltrates the water down into the ground, where it can slowly make its way to a stream instead of rushing it off to the stream. Here are some of the features that are common in a rain garden. We talked about this bowl shape with maybe berms to kind of hold the shape and keep the water in the rain garden. Some good soil, might not be able to tell, but that got added, some compost. It's got plants. You make your yard beautiful, colorful, great habitat for animals. You have conveyance systems. You can use pipes to get water to the rain garden, or you can use like a river rock channel. How cool would that look? And then rain gardens can work all year round. They can capture water in the winter or summer. And I will say Rain Garden Alliance is one of those great resources locally that has a lot of good information on their website, including great pictures. Plants are the workhorses of rain gardens. And this is something that a lot of people don't realize that I find really interesting. If you see this up here, that's turf grass, so that's your lawn. You see how deep the roots are? They're not. They're not deep at all, so they don't do a great job of holding water or holding soil. Versus switchgrass, little blue stem, native perennials that have a deep root system that gets down into the soil, allows water to flow along those roots, and really holds that soil together. So if you're going for something to really like help you slow water down, native plants are amazing. And they're so much more colorful. Green versus pink and blue and purple and yellow. You have a whole palette of colors. It's great. It's also great habitat for butterflies and bees and birds and all these other wonderful creatures. And so this is the before and after of a rain garden that I helped build. You can see, all grass before, and then it's not super close, but there are 2 rain gardens in the front of that house. That 1,600 square foot house that I showed the diagram of at the beginning, that's this house here. The front 2 downspouts are going into 2 separate rain gardens in the front yard. The backyard also has a rain garden and 2 rain barrels. This house is completely off the stormwater grid. We're not sending any more stormwater to the system that's overwhelmed, wherever you may be. So that is one house that's making a huge difference. If every other house did that, that'd be really cool. Rain gardens can be super simple. You can go ahead and build one in your front yard. It can also be really technical. So if you don't want to put one behind a retaining wall, you don't want to put one within 10 feet of your foundation, then you're going to have water in your basement, and that's no good. You don't want to put it at the top of the hillside or maybe at the bottom. So there are instances where, having an engineer or someone who's experienced in this is really important. There are other times you can do it yourself and totally fine. But there are some resources. That guide was over there on the table. It may have, this crowd is amazing, so I don't know if there's any left. Mm-hmm. Vermont Rain Garden Manual is a really good guide for do-it-yourself. Stormworks is a local company here in Pittsburgh that designs and builds rain gardens for residents. And then again, Rain Garden Alliance website is a great resource. There's also a sheet over there that has all the resources that I really like listed out if you want to grab them. If we run out, I can send it to Judy, and she can maybe pass it out too. Okay, sorry, I tend to ramble. Go through rain barrels pretty quickly. Rain barrels another way to hold water and then slowly use it over time so you're not just rushing it through a system, and then you get free water that you can water your garden with, grow vegetables, whatever you want to do with this water. You have a conveyance system that brings the water to a barrel. You have an overflow system, so when this 50-gallon, 100-gallon drum fills up when you're getting 600 gallons of water, the overflow goes somewhere that the water is safely away from your house. You have a way of getting the water out, and you have a screen to keep out mosquitoes and to keep out debris and stuff like that. My first house that I had that was my own, that I was like trying to be a good homeowner. I stuck a garbage can under my downspout, and the number of mosquitoes, number of twigs in that garbage can was really gross. Don't do that. Rain barrels have a couple important features, so keep those in mind if you ever decide to go down that route. There's lots of different options. A local company, again, Stormworks, they design and install rain gardens. They also sell and install rain barrels. And there's a couple other companies that are out there that do just rain barrels. And you can also build them yourselves. It's fairly easy. And they all have, all come from a downspout. Bring water to the barrel so that you can use it later. If you just have the rain barrel sitting there, it's sitting full, rains, that next rainstorm, that barrel's full, the water's just going to overflow. So the point of the rain barrel when you're thinking about like using water is to use the water so the next rain, the barrel starts empty and has that space to fill up. And there's also options for winterizing your barrel, because plastic, most winters here in Pittsburgh, not this one because it hasn't gotten cold, will freeze. So I've seen like 130-gallon of ice just come out of a rain barrel. Not something you want to do. The rain barrel's basically broken at that point. So rain barrels are a 3-season solution to stormwater. Here's some resources again, same guide, Stormworks. Rain Harvest System's a cool online store. They have rain barrels and other tips on and customer service technicians that you can call. Don't drink the water out of a rain barrel unless you filter it some way. My one disclaimer. And then last, who here has a stream running through their backyard? Oh, wow. I live in the city and there's no streams anymore, so that's incredible. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other things beside rain barrels and rain gardens you can do against your stream. So, riparian buffer. Riparian means ever relating to the stream bank. So riparian is really the area right next to the stream. As Matt said, in this area, that's typically forested. And there's a number of reasons that works really well. Forested, you have trees, and you have native plants, grasses. Those have really deep root systems, and those roots can hold on to the soil really well. So that's a good thing because we learned that streams move. So if there's something holding on to the soil, that kind of helps keep our banks stable. There's also riparian buffers will slow that water down. Going through a forest as a water drop is a much slower process than going through a grassy lawn as a water drop. Lawns, as we saw, have really shallow roots and they don't hold water as well as a forest does. So mowing right up to your lawn doesn't do your stream any favors. And I know that's sometimes, we are taught, lawns are good and we want to mow them and they keep things looking nice and neat and perfect. But I'm going to challenge that, having a nice forested area next to your lawn, your stream might be a better bet. Riparian areas will also cool the water down. So if you have a bunch of trees next to your stream, it shades it, keeps it cool, and that's better for the water's health. You can see one thing that's really neat, both rain gardens and riparian buffers have similar plant selections because they're plants that can handle being inundated with water and then also handle being dry during those summer months where it might not rain as much. This photo kind of changed my perspective on streams. My last job, I worked at 9 Mile Run Watershed Association, and there's a stream through Frick Park in the city of Pittsburgh. A lot of work has been done on that stream. We recently did, I think 2 winters ago, did some stream restoration work. Prior to that work, this is what this photo's from. It's hard to see, it's a little dark, but basically this whole area underneath these willows is open. The bank eroded away, and it wasn't just soil. when we restored that stream many years ago, put in like giant boulders to hold that stream bank intact. And during heavy rains, just washed out. We find boulders like way down, a mile down from where they got put in. Water can move so much, and it can move giant boulders. The only thing left in the stream was this grove of willow trees holding onto the bank. Which really shows you the power of plants in a watershed situation. So I will leave you with that photo, encourage you to plant your stream sides, and turn it over to someone who's really local in terms of watershed protection, and leave it up to her to finish us off. Oh, and there's some resources. Cool.
Thank you. I'm Kristen Schwalder, and I'm going to talk about watershed organizations and how to get involved. I'm a board member and the secretary for Gertie's Run, and I just joined this fall, so please forgive me if I don't know all of the answers, but we're working really hard to work on Gertie's Run. So I work as an environmental scientist with a large engineering firm, so that's kind of how I got involved in the watershed. I moved to Ross this summer. And, I witnessed some of the flooding and realized there's something that I can do in my own backyard to improve the situation. So Gertie's Run started really in 2018 after the flooding. And Donna is our executive director, so she can correct me if I'm wrong with anything. But she got together with a couple of concerned citizens and kind of said, this type of flooding where, it's, let me see if I can, the water is up to, the windows on these stores. What's going on? Why is this happening? What can we do in our community to kind of improve the situation or just learn how to deal with it better? These types of storms happen a lot more frequently than one would expect. I think if you look at the number 1, 2, and 3 greatest daily precipitation events in Pittsburgh, they've all been in the 2000s, 2004 and 2018. So it's kind of a big deal, and our watershed is really trying to help with this kind of problem. So Gertie's Run, our mission is to promote a just watershed system through advocacy, education, and conservation. So our goal is to kind of act as a single point of contact for stakeholders in the watershed. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. And I'm kind of going to skip through the next few slides a little bit faster than I had intended because you guys have already kind of discussed what a watershed is. So here's pretty much the same diagram talking about the watershed. So we kind of, so we've got 52 watersheds within Allegheny County alone. So it's kind of a big deal. Gertie's Run is right down here. And it starts in McCandless, and then it flows through six municipalities in total. McCandless, Ross, Shaler, Reserve, Millvale, and Westview. So it's, kind of interesting because as a watershed organization, we're following these non-political boundaries. Here's some maps of Gertie's Run. And, we have to work with all of these different municipalities to get, to affect change and to kind of talk about our situations. We've got some areas like Millvale and Westview that are a little bit more urban. So we've got the more condensed streets, closer housing, less room for green spaces. And then, up in McCandless and Ross and Shaler, people have bigger yards and just more space to kind of help us out. So like I said, our goals are, with Gertie's Run, are to really focus on education, conservation, advocacy, and community engagement. So together, everyone in the watershed can play a role to manage and protect our waters for the health of our community. So even though we're a pretty young organization, we've had the support of the Conservation District and a bunch of other organizations in the region. And we've been able to complete some really great projects thus far. So we've hosted 23 educational events or co-hosted them. And I'm going to talk about some of our programs from the past year and a half that might be a little bit more applicable to McCandless or what you can do on your own property. So one of our educational events has been to kind of work with the Shaler Area School District to build a rain garden. And so the students helped design it, and they got to learn about water quality, water chemistry, how to monitor that, and they even, of course, have a phone app to do that. So they can sit at home and figure out what's going on in the rain garden. So it also teaches students about wildlife in rain gardens, pollinators, green infrastructure, and how to reduce pollutants. And to be honest, these are some really, really hot topics in environmental sciences. I kind of work on them every single day. So it's awesome that these high school students in Shaler are being exposed to this at such an early age and can choose to follow a career path that relates to stormwater. So you can plant your own rain garden. It's not that hard. Maureen talked about some of the different design elements that you can implement. They don't have to be super fancy. If you go to Home Goods, McCandless Crossing, they have a rain garden in the parking lot. So has anyone seen that? Yeah. So that's a pretty cool use of a rain garden. It can be in the middle of the blacktop. It doesn't necessarily have to be in like a beautiful grassland or anything. And it serves a really good purpose. And like Maureen said, the Rain Garden Alliance is a pretty good organization to kind of get some species lists and some ideas for what you can do on your property. And here's kind of like a diagram that you can get. They're really pretty. You can get some trees and some shrubs and all kinds of different color perennials in there that'll help retain some of that water. So Gertie's Run has also helped out at a couple rain barrel workshops. Like they said earlier, rain barrels kind of collect all the water from your roof, and you can use it to water your gardens or your grass or whatever you need to when it's dry out. So rain barrels, they kind of have a relatively small footprint, so it's easy to fit them onto your property. And you can even link up a couple of them if you have a really big need for water. So kind of moving on to another educational opportunity, Gertie's Run has teamed with the Allegheny College Creek Connections program, and we offer students the opportunity to learn about the watershed, and they actually earn college credit for it. So the students participate in lessons, and they collect the data about the stream. So this is a picture of the students out in Millville. I think this is by the library, where you can see this is Gertie's Run, and this is one of the problems that Gertie's Run has to deal with in the lower half of the watershed is we've got these walls. There's no floodplain. There aren't that many trees. There's nowhere for this water to go during flood events. So students learn about this, kind of learn about how to conduct research and just become more confident getting out into the field and experiencing science. So another really important conservation item that Gertie's Run has focused on is tree plantings. So I think last year you planted 45 trees and logged 149 volunteer hours, which that's pretty great numbers for a new organization. And one of the tree plantings was along the waterfront trail. You can kind of see, I think that's the boathouse. Yeah. So planted a bunch of trees along here, which is in the Riparian Buffers. So we're helping to reforest with native tree species that will grow and take over, shade the trail, and then provide all those ecological benefits to the river and to the watershed. And another one of our tree plantings was in Millvale, in kind of a more urban setting where you're putting trees next to houses and sidewalks, and you use different tree species in those cases. So it's kind of something cool that Gertie's Run has been working on. So as our watershed group grows, we're focusing on providing communities with clean and healthy water. So our leadership has participated in planning and zoning meetings for the different communities. So you may have seen some of us around. Donna may have, presented herself and said hi to some of the commissioners. And we kind of intend on spending more time with each community. I'm from Ross, so I'll be helping out there. Kind of opening lines of communication and educating our neighbors on how to treat Gertie's Run a little bit better and identify new ways to help out. And I think we kind of talked about this a little bit with your experience with 9 Mile, that we aren't the only watershed organization in the Pittsburgh region. We're just a little bit younger. And each organization kind of has different problems that they have to deal with, whether it's deforestation or development or, those concrete stream walls, stuff like that. So we're definitely going to be looking to other watersheds to kind of learn and grow. As McCandless residents, skipped a slide there. So as McCandless residents, if you are kind of wondering, well, what can I do? What can I do at my house that's, maybe cheap or easy to put in, to install? You can start with planting trees. This is something everybody could just, this spring, grab a native tree from a nursery and put it in your front or backyard. You can put in rain gardens. You can put in some rain barrels. You could disconnect your downspouts. I know most houses already have them disconnected, and you have to do the dye test when you buy a house, but make sure yours are disconnected. And talk to your advocacy groups in your township. If you see something like dirty runoff, dirty rain water, maybe ask, because that dirt is just going to go and fill in our watershed, and it's going to go to the Gertie's Run or Pine Creek and eventually into the Allegheny River. And another thing you can do is participate in litter cleanups, because just like the dirt, the litter is going to flow, and it's either going to blow by the wind or it's going to be carried by rainwater, and it'll eventually end up in our streams, clogging culverts and stuff like that. So all of this will kind of increase the value of your home too. So you can look at it that way. It increases the value of your home and makes your neighborhood a more desirable place to live. So if you do want to get involved with Gertie's Run, you can talk to me afterwards. I'll give you contact information. It's also up here. We've got a couple of events coming up, and because it's winter, they are indoors, and we'll be at Howard's Pub on the 21st. It'll be a fundraising event, and you can kind of talk to the board members. And then in March, we'll be at Wiggle Whiskey doing kind of the same thing, just chatting with everybody in the community. And if you hop on our website, which is up here, we'll be posting all of our other events coming up in the spring. So it'll be tree plantings or litter cleanups and, just State of the Watershed Summit, things that we intend to do just to, increase our, your awareness of what's going on and make small improvements. So that's it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for our volunteers showing up tonight. We had Kristen and Rebecca, Matt, and Maureen. One more time. All right, before we move on to questions, a couple of quick housekeeping items. First of all, we have Amy Steele, who's with Northland Public Library. I think she had a couple of questions for you.
A couple of quick questions. I hope everyone can hear me. This is the first of a series that we're co-sponsoring with the McCandless Environmental Advisory Council. And I'm just curious, so we can make sure, obviously, we all got the word out tonight, so this is great to see the turnout. I just want to do a quick show of hands. How many of you heard about tonight's program McCandless avenues, their website or the McCandless newsletter or Savvy Citizen, something like that. Okay, and how many of you heard about it through the library's website or newsletter or email? How many heard it from both? There we go. Okay, thank you. I just want to know so that we know going forward as we promote more of these programs, what's working and what's getting the word out. So thank you very much for coming. Stay tuned to all of those channels because we have more coming through the rest of the year.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Before we open it up for questions, first thing I'm going to ask is I will put the microphone up front. I will ask that you come up to the microphone and ask your question. And a quick reminder, first of all, too, I'm thrilled with the amount of people that came tonight. Thank you all so much for taking your time out this evening. But a quick reminder that this is an educational, informational session tonight. So this isn't a town meeting or anything. So we're here just to get some information from our experts who volunteered their time tonight. So just keep that in mind when you ask your questions, that we're all kind of here to learn tonight. And bring your questions up, and our experts will help. We also have Jason Singer over here as well, who's the chairman of the McCandless EAC. We have several other members here tonight. Other EAC members, raise your hands for me. Thank you all for coming. Anybody else we need to introduce, Jason?
We have Andy Banfield, who is a stormwater engineer for the town of McCandless as well here this evening. He'll be up here also as well to answer any questions. Again, I stress, this isn't a town council meeting. We're here for informational purposes. Please keep that in mind. These people were nice enough to come here and lend their information for you tonight. Please be respectful. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move the microphone up front here.
So by all means, please come up if you have a question. We'd be more than willing to answer anything you might have.
My name is John Andre. I've lived in McCandless for over 40 years, and I direct the question to Mark here. Since Matt with Allegheny County Regulatory. Whenever we go for building a residence, any type of building, strip mall, why don't we look into approving before we build rather than you approving things after? In order to see why can't we build it back up on the highlands? Why you, the borough, the township, are building it in a floodplain? Why can't we look at an alternate source? The McCandless has done a marvelous job in building. Whenever we look around at the university we have over here, when people pass it on the corner, we see that big corner lot empty, does nothing, but boy, does it do a job, because I'm downstream from it whenever July finally breaks open that we live through. I give you the thought of some things we are living with because our forefathers blessed it, built it, and looked for the revenue to come into the borough and township. We all know dollars talk, but we have to get back to the other reality that what the individuals living in residence and living in buildings that a corporation has built, trying to get flood insurance that used to be a couple $100 is in many thousands now. This gets you right here. Look at things where they want to build them and maybe say no. Thank you.
Code, ordinances, building practices, they've changed a lot from the 70s. You mentioned forefathers. There are kind of stormwater sins and development sins from yesteryear. We absolutely do. One of our programs, erosion sediment control, stormwater management, if you're disturbing over an acre, you have to size retention ponds to hold a two-year storm volume and control rate in those ponds, and that's done by the size of the orifice and the outlet structure up to the 100-year storm. Floodplain ordinances, that's locally administered. So the county and DEP, they really don't get involved with the building code as far as, where the bottom floor, the basement needs to be. That lives locally. It is being looked at. There's these things of the past that are ongoing issues as things are redeveloped. So long as people follow the regulations, they'll be brought into the fold, use stormwater controls, follow floodplain ordinances, and as citizens feel empowered. If you see something, if you see a building going up right next to a stream, if you see somebody digging in a stream, call the township, call us, call DEP, check if they have permits. How's this going to affect me? Are they allowed to be doing that? I mean, you're certainly welcome to do that at any point.
Just to add into that, the town did update its floodplain ordinance in 2018, restricting a lot of the development in the floodplain that used to occur. And we've also increased the riparian buffer requirements. That they say that rather than denuding everything all the way down to the stream bank and say, well, we got everything that we can see here. So those have been in there. And the other part that I hope a lot of residents will going forward, talking about new development, we do have a system of credits in our stormwater ordinance for people that are willing to do this work. But the developers won't do it because it costs money. So we can't tell them to do it because that would be us designing their land. We need you to tell them, hey, take this into account in the environment. We care. And when they start hearing that, they say, oh, we didn't even know that section of the ordinance was there. And we'll be glad to show them all the things that they can do to help the environment, help the stormwater, help the flooding flows, and also make their site a lot more environmentally friendly.
Come on up, sure. Hi.
Hello, my name is Annette Traeger. I live in Ross, and I live off of Rochester Road, English Farms. And our plan, we have the stream that comes, I thought was beautiful when I moved there. It was so idyllic. Right across by the parking lot, and it's quiet and all that. And we have the hillsides. Right now, we're kind of having a perfect storm of a quick rising stream. And our hillsides are actually, we have a lot of deforestation. A lot of our planned fees are for cleaning up trees that are falling down, a lot. And we have deer that ravage everything. So my question is to you, would planting trees help at this point to alleviate some of that? And do native plants, not deer resistant, just native plants, actually prevent deer from just mowing through? I sort of lost my gardening mojo because everything's gone. Okay, thank you.
I just like to say there's no such thing as a deer-resistant plant. And if any of you want to come forward, when we plant trees, we put either trees or tubes or caging, depending on if it's a tree or a shrub.
In terms of hillside stabilization, trees most definitely are. They've got large root systems, but when you plant trees, you plant them when their roots are, that big. So it's something that takes time, that doesn't change things overnight. And oftentimes, when we want trees is 10 years after when we should have planted them. So we need to start planting trees. Hillsides are around here. We have a lot of red bed soils, so slides are potential always, and heavier rain, it's going to make it more unstable. So trees, I don't know. I'm a strong believer that trees are an important part of our landscape. So I don't know, engineers or anyone else do you have something to add? Yeah.
I fully agree with what they're saying.
All right, I'm not a no.
Hi, my name's Ernie Avolio. I just moved here 3 years ago, and 3 days after I moved in, it was in early June of 17, and you would probably remember that major rain we had. Water came in the house I just bought, and just devastated the front of the house and tore down walls and everything. Since then, in trying to go against my tax assessment, I took information to the county, and since I bought the house as an estate, I had no idea there was a water issue. And so I've been doing research, and I believe my property, my house actually sits on a ancient tributary. On it, not in it, not next to it, on it. Because when we get a rainfall of about an inch, 50, 60, 75 feet up the hill behind my house, the ground just opens up and water pours out. There's no drain line, because I saw Mr. Betty about it. There aren't any sewer lines, there aren't any water lines, there is nothing up there. So I just wonder if there is a term that what that is when it's dry, when it's only active when it's extremely wet. Is there a term for that? No? I know maybe you're not a hydrologist or a geologist, but that's what I need to know.
It could be a spring that
It's a major spring.
The last 2-3 years we've had really abnormally high rainfall. I think last year at the airport was the highest since 1870 something. So there's underneath the ground these pathways, water soaks in and finds its spot where it eventually pops out. A lot of those may have run dry. You don't get enough rain, but you really fill the aquifer.
Yeah.
Just in a heavier precipitation
Well,
year.
it's the kind of water that you talk about 600 gallons on a roof. I get that probably per second coming off that hill. It's amazing. And I've gone to extreme measures to divert the water from going at the house and go around. And I know somebody's seen it because it's right on, I live on West Ingomar, not far from the intersection of Perry Highway. There's a flat spot there, and my house sits back. You have to see it. If you wouldn't mind, Andy, I wouldn't mind showing you a video before it's just for the heck of it. Thank you.
Also talk to Bruce.
All right.
So I'm curious, as a homeowner, do I have responsibility for what happens in my neighbor's yard who is downhill from me, who is downstream from me? Legally, ethically, morally, technically, is that taken into consideration when homes are built, for example? Start again?
Sure. Let me repeat that question for you. The question was, as a neighbor, what sort of responsibilities do you have with your stormwater? And this is a common practice in an area developed such as McCandless. In newer housing plans, stormwater is managed on lot. Each individual home typically manages their own water. Their downspouts are accounted for. Storm ponds are maintained. And the problem is, in an older development area like McCandless, it wasn't figured then. So when these homes were built, it was typical fashion to take the water and dump it onto the next person down, and that person collects the water and dumps it to the next person down, and it continues downhill. Water flows downhill. It's a product of the development of the time period, is kind of the background and basis on that, and where we stand with it today is about as big of a gray area as it can be. And I mean, I'll let Andy talk a little bit more to that, but that's a repeat of the question and kind of the problem that gets encountered here in McCandless.
Yeah, and another part that is actually something that the town does that a lot of other municipalities don't do. Towns are, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'll put my little lawyer hat on. Towns are not liable when it comes to stormwater management. But the town, when somebody would call or something like that, they'll send out someone from the town, whether it be myself, another engineer from our firm, someone on the staff, to go out and actually look at the problem and see if there is a solution to that problem. But again, stormwater is considered a civil issue, so from the legal standpoint, which to me sounds like a cop-out, and I hear myself saying it that it's a cop-out, but unfortunately it's the law. But we do get involved in that. What we see a lot with neighbors is especially with the flooding, I believe it was talked about with the debris and keeping these cleaned up. We see the basketballs and things like that, small stuff going there, but you start getting trees and old cars that end up in culverts and bridges. Those are the kind of things that we'd like to, probably a good idea to give the code officer or something and say, hey, that could be a problem. But it's hard to give a definitive legal idea of what you should or should not do with your neighbor. Wish I had a better answer for you.
Hi, I'm Trish Clunan, and I am on McAllis Town Council, but I have a question related to my other business, which is in real estate. There are many of us through McAllis, Ross, Shaler that have a need for internal French drain sump pump systems. I really like the idea of the rain gardens, but do you see the rain gardens working with these type systems? Is there a possibility that we could be getting them instead of, because like a typical French drain system can be anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 for an internal French drain and sump pump in a typical residence in McAllis right now?
So the easy answer is maybe. And it's really challenging. I spent the last 5 years of my life going to homeowners and, they'd tell me their problem, they'd show me the water spots in their basement, and we'd try to come up with a solution that worked. And, sometimes it involves a plumber. We tried to do it in a more native way, landscape way. Sometimes we were successful and the homeowner had no more water problems in their basement. Sometimes that doesn't always work. We always said, a rain garden improves the yard, so it's a great first step. It doesn't involve a plumber digging up your house. Rain barrels, rain gardens are things that homeowners can sometimes do themselves, whereas the French drain's a little more complicated, a little more costly. So therefore, it's we often recommended it down the road. Try one thing first. Water goes where it wants to, so these aren't, easy answers, definite solutions. Do this one thing, it solves everything. So I think it's a great idea to oftentimes put a whole bunch of solutions into one, and you'll maybe solve your issue.
Just to follow up on that, so I like the idea that it can't hurt to put a garden in your yard.
Yes.
But at the same time, so we look at that as a possible solution. Do you give it let's watch what happens for a year or 2 years or 7 years before we, write the big check to the waterproofing company?
Yeah, rain gardens are, conveyance systems to a rain garden are often, very concrete. Their water goes from your roof to the garden. It shouldn't take more than a year. You should see pretty quick solutions with rain gardens. Plants are wonderful. They do take time to establish, but the conveyance system to the garden and the garden itself should provide solutions pretty immediately if that's your problem. Rain gardens do not solve, groundwater issues. They don't solve other issues. They will solve, issues with broken pipes in the ground and dealing with water away from your house. Rain gardens should never go up against your basement.
Just to confirm what I think I heard you say, it's okay to direct the discharge from an existing sump pump, like a mitigation system, to the rain garden, right?
I did not say that, but
Is it okay?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the question was: is it okay to direct the sump pump or another mitigation to stormwater into a rain garden? And as long as the water is clean, there shouldn't be any reason. You do want to calculate that quantity when you're building the rain garden, make sure it's sized appropriately. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's something that can be brought up. Typically, what we see in French drains and sump pumps in the area, the thought process is to pump it and get it out as fast as we can. A lot of times, with again the infrastructure around, we typically have to put them into rock sumps or something into the area. They can be laboring. A rain garden is a great alternative to it. It's something complementary, is what I could say. Your biggest concern in constructability would be the surcharge. As you know, a sump pump surcharges. So in that discharge into that rain garden, you'd have to have some kind of modification where it kind of slowed it down so you didn't constantly erode the rain garden. But it's a wonderful alternative, to use that.
Hi, my name is Brandon Schweiger, and I recently just moved here 2 years ago, and I live at 55 Pine Creek Road, which I'm sure everyone in this room is very familiar with. We too bought the house. Well,
Let's hear about 55 Pine Creek Road.
Look on the internet, you'll see it. I too, like the gentleman, bought a house, being young. It was an estate sale. We were lied to, flat out lied to. Our house is in a floodplain, and we were told it was a 100-year floodplain, meaning it could flood 1% chance every year. So we've been there almost 2 years. We've been flooded 10 times. And the last flood in July, we got 51 inches of water in our house. And my wife and 2-year-old son was rescued on a boat. So my question is, I know you said dredging does nothing, and to a point, yes, I agree with that. But the creek that I own, well, I don't own the creek, I own 4 acres behind me, and the creek is almost like a snake. It just bends and bends and bends and bends, and that water hits those banks, and it just pushes it way up over, and it causes dam ups, and there's a housing plant above us. And I'm not sure if there's a retention pond there. I've talked to the township about it, but my guess would be maybe there is, but maybe it's not big enough to hold the amount of water that's coming from those houses. But floating debris, I mean, we see water tanks, we see tires, I mean, it's unreal. Where is this stuff coming from? There's a baseball field right across from us. And, I mean, we get hammered with this water. And, I mean, we've done our homework. We went to the Corps of Engineers, and their answer was fill your basement up with concrete. You know, I bought a house with a 4-car garage for a reason. But fill up the garage with concrete, or put louvers in your house to let the water flow through, and don't put anything down there. You know, that's I'm not looking for any sympathy. I'm just looking for, do you think a rain garden, or do you think planting something's going to help me in this point? No. But
I'm going to just one comment, then I'll pass it to
Yeah.
someone else because, rain gardens aren't, they're
Yeah.
to put in upstream to help downstream. And they are not something you want to put necessarily in a floodplain because they'll just get flooded.
Right.
So rain gardens are not your solution, sorry.
yeah, I kind of figured that. But I figured I'd ask.
I hadn't heard that. I didn't know 55. I mean, first off, sorry to hear. That's a really difficult thing to go through.
Yeah.
As far as the frequency of return, the 100-year storm, that's long-term data. I think Andy'd probably be the best person to speak on those returns. It doesn't mean it's only going to happen once every 100 years.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, it's...
He did say 1% chance a year.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, like I said, it's a huge, deal, and to follow the, rules of regulation, I guess you could call it, to go to the township and to go to the DEP and to go to the Corps of Engineers, and for them to basically tell you, you really can't do nothing because you're going to flood the next person. But what does that, what does that mean for the people? I'm at the bottleneck, I'm at the bottom of the line. So it's, we're at our wits' end because, I'm looking for suggestions. I know, like I said, the environment, planting trees, I understand all that, but when you have so much debris in these creeks, and, the erosion is just unreal. When we moved there was no signs at all of flooding. So, of course, I was excited. 27 years old, buying my first home, I was excited. I didn't see any signs. There was very well hidden if there were. But now, it has, it's changed our lives. And I'm sure there are people in this room who were there to help, and I really appreciate your help. But any suggestions that you guys have would be great. Thank you.
neighbor. I live right up from I'm Dawn Miller at 235 Pine Creek Road. Yeah. So anyway, I think some of the things that maybe the township can do and the EAC can do, and something that we can do is work with our neighbors. I guess that would be upstream on Pine Creek Road. You know, we have a great sinew in the creek is great because it's all windy, but a lot further up from us, there's no riparian buffers. The grass goes completely up to the creek banks, and people mow straight up to it. So, you know, maybe we can work with our neighbors to try to do some plantings and things like that there. But it's the force and the amount of water that's coming down with the storms. I've lived here about 8 years. It's definitely gotten worse. It's the worst in the last 2 years that it's been in our area, based on my experience. So I'd like to work with the township and the EAC and talk about maybe getting some J-hooks, or there's some channels maybe that can be put in to slow down the speed of the water when we have these big storm events and hold it a little bit. There's some things that can be done there. Where you live, there's a huge Japanese knotweed infestation, which keeps, that's a huge contributing factor to how fast the water gets into the stream, because that's not a native plant and it kills everything else. So there's no native undergrowth there to sort of help slow and help with infiltration. So anyway, I think some of the neighbors need to get together that live along Pine Creek and maybe do some work and work with the EAC. I'm not so sure they're going to be able to help you and I. But so just to sort of address that,
Thank you.
I think we should talk some more later.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
What incentives for homeowners is McKinsey's considering?
One second. Let's let this gentleman, and then if you have a question, please come up.
My name is Ron Eichner, Eichner's Farm, fourth generation full-time farmer. Jason, Andy knows me, and probably half the people in the room. Just what this gentleman said just before, I sympathize for him. My family's had our property since 1897, so I know a lot what's going on. I'm probably the most non-educated man in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to truly understand stormwater. And the problem is, I spent my whole adult life around stormwater management since 1978 forward, and the bottom line is it's a failure. The reason why he's getting flooding is because the retention ponds that are designed in these subdivisions truly aren't holding water to the way they should. They're all designed for 100-year events. They're designed for a developer to come in and calculate how much water could be in a pre-developed state. And the purpose of the retention ponds then is that pre-developed flow dictates how much water can be released from that pond. Hence, you shouldn't get additional flooding, but you'll get sustained flow. But just in our valley, the main creek, I used to trap it, my twin brother and I, when we were kids. And looking at that creek now, it's 3 times wider. And the problem is the development and mismanaged water. And soil conservation, my family farm, we've won conservation awards through the county. I know what I'm talking about. I know where the problems are. And, it's been a failure so far. And Andy, you've been at our farm. And a matter of fact, when I reached out to you after you were there, and I'm not being vindictive, but you never called back. And the reason why was our former town manager probably didn't permit you to call back. And I got problems on our farm we put up for 40 plus years. And all we want to do is farm. But now we're in a man-made floodplain. What it is above us is a Forest Oaks development. Prime example, it's overdeveloped. And with no access to a creek except coming through our farm. And our new town manager, Bob Grimm, in the back, I spent an hour with him, and Bob can, he knows where I'm coming from. And rumor has it, as an example, the town wants to hire an consulting engineer to consult to the town if we need to replace our engineer or engineering firm. And I'm not trying to cast fault, but we got problems. We need things corrected. So I know I didn't pose it in the form of a question, but if I would pose it in the form of a question are we going to make improvements? We haven't since '78. All we have is concepts that have failed, and it's adding to the problem. It's not about these little rain gardens and all this stuff. Yes, it all helps, but These creeks weren't designed. A lot of these floodplains that you see down in Gertie's Run and such, they built years ago and they didn't have the water flow. It's all, Ross Park Mall, that's your biggest contributing, all the asphalt and everything. It's just mismanagement. The concept's great. I guess maybe the question I have in finishing is, I know the answer to it, but who's the #1 implementer of stormwater management in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? I mean, we got state, we got county, we got local municipalities. So maybe Andy, if you could answer that for us.
You know the answer.
Well, maybe tell the audience.
Yeah, we really.
I don't know. Yeah, we don't know the answer.
I need your phone number.
The #1 implementer of stormwater management in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, set up by our state legislators and DEP, is your municipality. The county only has so much jurisdiction. It's primarily erosion and sedimentation. In DEP, they have a state responsibility. But I got to tell you something. It's going to sound like Saturday Night Live material. It's probably about 12 years ago I had DEP come out because what I'm saying to DEP and soil conservation, these retention ponds aren't retaining water, hence you got more flooding. So DEP sends out a senior engineer from DEP. The person pulls into my farm. It was a taxi. And the reason why the individual had a taxi was he couldn't drive. And the reason why he couldn't drive, he was technically blind. I'm not making this up. And he came with a camera, but he asked me, hey, am I shooting in the right area? Like I said, this sounds like Saturday Night Live material. And then for me to do correspondence, anybody that knows me knows that I don't type. I'm a verbal communication specialist. And my penmanship's so beautiful, people look at it and say, did your mother write these notes, or why do you let your mother write your notes? Well, I went to a Catholic school and they graded on penmanship. But no, the point, if I wanted to communicate to this gentleman in a written correspondence, I had to send it to a third-party company for them then to read it to him, and the response was the same way back. So I apologize for my frustration, but like I said, I've been exposed to this in a very negative way, and I know where the solutions are, and I want to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Can I jump in real quick? I think he said something that is very that a lot of people don't know, and I don't think I knew quite well before I started my current position. And that is there is a lot of jurisdiction on like who handles what, and I think it's important to know that stormwater codes are something that are local. So being involved and staying in tune with what happens locally can impact how the municipality that you live in, whether it be McCandless, Ross, or Millville, or wherever you're from, being in tune with what's happening at the local government level can impact stormwater. So there is also like Allegheny County Conservation District has our part that we play, DEP plays a part, state legislation plays a part. So all of those have little pieces, but being involved in that political sphere is important at a very micro level. So I just wanted to bring out that important part that you said and make sure that I could say it again and we all heard that.
If I can piggyback onto that and be the bravest person in the whole room right now. My name is Becky Boyle. I'm the Communications and District Director for Senator Lindsey Williams. Please don't yell at me. But I'm here tonight. I just wanted to listen and let you all know that while our office cannot fix all of these problems and certainly cannot fix them immediately, we definitely want to be helpful in any way that we can. Please call us, please email us if you're having issues. We want to be as helpful as possible. I don't know if you've reached out to your state organizations or to your state government in with prior other senators or House members, but we really do want to be as helpful as possible. So please give us a call if there are issues. And we'll do what we can to be helpful. So I just wanted to let you know that we are here and we're listening. So thank you all. Thank you.
Just a real quick update on time here. We've got about 5 more minutes. So if we have any new questions, I understand it's a lot of great information. Thank you. Another speaker, thank you.
How many here are affected by the floods, by the high water? That's why we're all here, right? I live up on Branch School Road, and luckily the guy that built my house kind of built up a levee around it, and my house sits on top. But when Branch School Road floods, or not Branch School Road, but Fish Run is where I live, that's close to the source of where that creek starts. And if we get a 20-minute downpour, that creek is up in my yard and going clear around the house and, under Branch School Road. And, it's unbelievable how fast that creek comes up. People say, I see you lost a couple pieces of lawn furniture there. I'm like, well, I didn't have time to pick up everything, but that water comes up so quick, you don't have time to think. And this year it came within inches of our house. So every year it's getting worse. And this year we had, I think, 3 or 4 floods. Not in the house, but it just rips through the yard and tears things up. And so I feel for everybody that has that problem. And I agree with you that the water retention ponds don't do a darn thing. I took a walk up through the plans, and I see these ponds. I'm thinking a 20-minute downpour, these retention ponds should hold that amount of water at least. But if you're getting like a 2-3 day hurricane comes through and drops a ton of water, I can understand that flooding. But just a simple 20-minute, half-hour rainstorm, that creek shouldn't come up that fast. You'd think those retaining ponds would hold that back. Thanks.
Thank you all for sharing tonight. Obviously, mitigating the existing structures and pavement, what incentives are townships and different municipalities using to get commercial and residents to do this so that you have big impact? Thank you.
Question. The only incentives I know of are in municipalities that are able to implement a stormwater fee. I don't know if McCandless has a stormwater fee. I won't bring it up. And those municipalities that have a stormwater fee, they often implement a credit program. So if you have X number of impervious surface and you convert it, or rain gardens, et cetera, green infrastructure, you get a certain amount credit rebate on your annual stormwater fee. Otherwise, there's no such thing as incentives from municipalities for for landowners, property owners.
But wait.
Oh, sorry.
There is. I don't know if you were talking about it with, say, existing buildings. I know a lot of folks have mentioned about, why aren't they building up higher, and we have a lot of existing buildings that are just sitting there. The town does have in their ordinance, and most of the municipalities in North Hills have what they call a redevelopment ordinance, so that it would encourage builders or new property owners coming into the area to use existing structures. And what they have to do is, usually those structures were built before the Stormwater Act came in, so there's no stormwater at all. So they have to put in reduced stormwater, and it focuses on the more frequent storms, the 2-year, the 10-year. Our new ordinance now is going down to the 1 year. So the bigger storms, those 100-year storms, they still go past like they normally would. But that's the incentive, is that it's a little bit reduced, so that way we at least get some stormwater management where there was none, and it gives them an incentive rather than going in and tearing apart a brand new piece of land and denuding more forested property. They can use an existing building and have a lesser stormwater cost than they would for a brand new. I don't know if that's where you were going with that or in that area.
Good evening. My name is Mary Wilson. In the thought of education, I wanted to alert people to a program that's fairly new to Western Pennsylvania, developed by Penn State University, called the Master Watershed Steward Program. It's a national program. It's been active in the eastern part of the state for several years, but we now have it in Allegheny County. I'm the county coordinator for that program, and the goal of the program is to educate people about watershed stewardship, how watersheds function, a lot of the things that have been presented here. Rebecca's a graduate of the program, and we have some other graduates or trainees in the room already. But it's a valuable program in terms of giving people a really good understanding of how watersheds work. I brought flyers that are on the table for anybody to take. We're starting a new training program March 17th. I'll have a program going at Shaler Library tomorrow evening at 6:30 to introduce people to the program. But one of the little factoids for education, one of the factoids for education that you might not realize is that in a watershed, the structure of the kind we have around here that basically looks like a tree, it's called a dendritic watershed formation. Most of the water is in 65% to 85% of the water in terms of hitting a stream is in the very top tributaries, the smallest little streams that are in people's backyards. So if you want to stop problems on the lower end of any watershed, the most important thing is to think about that massive land at the upper part of it might be somewhere toward the bottom of the stream, but it might be one of those little tiny streams near anywhere in that watershed. Controlling water there is the most important part of controlling water in the main stem. So everything they've talked about, thank God for the riparian buffers. That's one of the best things that you can do to reduce water going into the stream. No joke. Riparian buffers are very, very important. The other thing is there was a mention of debris coming through floods and barrels and tires I heard people mentioning. If people pulled all of that gear at least 50 feet away from the edge of any stream in their backyard, you could reduce that kind of debris and stop some of the damming of culverts from tires and firewood and all those things that got caught in a high rain event. So please, if you know anybody in your neighborhood who has debris, or not debris, but has storage in their property along the edge of the stream, encourage them to move that back, because that can cause somebody catastrophic damage to their property downstream. Thank you.
Real quick, I know we're pushing time, but this is just a quick thought. As a farmer, I have to have certain licenses. And a question I'd like to maybe propose to everyone here, two questions. Do developers have meetings like farmers have to go to and, to basically be good stewards of the land? That's number one. Number two, maybe developers should have to acquire a license through DEP and update training. It just might, they're the ones that should be sitting here. We're the ones getting the abuse.
Well, I thank everybody very much. Some excellent questions, excellent information. I know I've learned a ton of stuff tonight. One more thank you I forgot. Angela Woods over here. Actually, Angela's the one that pulled these people together and got this all going, this whole speaker series going. So thank you, Angela. And one more push. If you haven't signed in, please sign in. Otherwise, enjoy your evening. Thank you so much for coming.